Before there were bombs, guns, swords, spears, or man-made weapons that brought on the conflict of war, the first battles ever fought were one-on-one, unarmed, hand-to-hand combat. Even the most ancient religious stories spell out the violence between two people that will never escape humanity. We have evolved one-on-one conflict into sport, from the gladiators of ancient Rome and now to our modern-day Olympians and combat athletes who learn their techniques through martial arts. The three martial arts that we will analyze the professional training methods for are extremely practical in their use in actual combat. Kickboxing, a striking martial art utilizing punches and kicks. Wrestling, bringing and controlling your opponent to the ground. And Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, submissions of opponents with joint locks and chokes. For each sport, the success an athlete can achieve is based on two things: how well they have learned the techniques associated with that sport, and how well their bodies can perform and maintain those techniques over the course of the competition. In each sport, these two aspects vary in importance because of the difference in necessary explosive energy for each of them, and the difference in importance that speed and power and flexibility have on the activity. When it comes to the four exercise sports science categories, cardio, muscular strength, muscular endurance, and flexibility, being better prepared than your opponent in these areas that are not associated with the techniques of the sports will give you more of an advantage in one sport than the other. For example, in kickboxing, being able to kick faster, harder, higher, and for a longer period of time, these things all correlating to the four exercise sports science categories, gives you a better opportunity to win the contest than these things would in a jiu-jitsu match because of the nature of the competition. Jiu-jitsu is dominated by those who accumulate the most knowledge of techniques and strategy over time and perfect the muscle memory associated with those techniques. Kickboxing is a very technical sport as well, but the aspects of cardio, muscular strength, and flexibility can help an athlete bridge the gap they may not have in technique through these things. Therefore, the physical training along with the technical trainings get split up differently between each sport. Because success in wrestling is correlated so much with power and explosiveness, Olympic level wrestlers spend on average the most time doing heavy weight training and weight resistant exercises in order to build power because it has the biggest impact on their performance of the three sports. Here, Jordan Burroughs, two-time NCAA champion and five-time Olympic and world champion, demonstrates some of his normal workout routines. These techniques simulate explosiveness and help to build his strength. Wrestlers focus much of their time on muscular strength. For kickboxing, muscular endurance and cardio are the two main categories that require the most attention from their athletes. Although muscular strength can be helpful, creating powerful strikes is more dependent on correct coordination, and being able to maintain that same power over time relates to endurance training more than strength training. On top of the sports science categories' impact on kickboxing, factors such as height and reach play a role in the success for the athlete as well. The better someone is at controlling distance and staying out of the way of punches, the more success they have. The training method, in order to become more efficient at those things, consists of pad hitting and sparring. Practicing throwing punches and kicks are obviously the most important aspect of kickboxing because that's the entirety of the sport. The better and more effective you are at doing these two things, the more success you have. The most important way to become efficient at correctly performing punches and kicks is by drilling them over and over. Fighters will shadow box, throwing strikes in the air and moving around, simulating an imaginary opponent and fight. Fighters will drill pads, actually throwing strikes at a specific target with power and speed, and a pad holder who simulates the opponent. Body-on-body drills, where fighters wear gloves and shin pads and throw gentle punches at one another while also practicing the defenses associated with the strikes. And bag hitting, striking the bag with heavy force and speed over a small period of time. Bag hitting helps to improve the fighter's cardio and muscular endurance. Jiu-jitsu is a sport so heavily dependent on technicality that almost 100% of the training that these athletes do are completely focused on the techniques involved and not on improving the four categories of sports science. Jiu-jitsu focuses on being in control of your body and precisely making the correct movements and knowing what to do in any situation. Strength and cardio endurance can play a factor at the highest levels, but those who reach the peak of the sport are all known for the amazing knowledge and technical aspects of their jiu-jitsu game. Of the four categories, the one that plays the most prominent role in jiu-jitsu is most likely flexibility, because flexibility allows the athlete to use more techniques than they would otherwise not have been able to do. Those are the different training methods and physical exercises that the three sports are unique in, and they show the results of these trainings through the physical appearances of the top athletes of each sport. If you look at the athletes that dominate the jiu-jitsu game, they do not all have particularly one type of body. Some of them do have a lot of muscle mass, and others of them have bodies that you would not guess resemble a professional athlete. They do the least amount of explosive movement of the three sports. The kickboxers tend to have a mix as well, with more of the fighters having more muscle mass than those of jiu-jitsu athletes, but many of them also being very lean. However, although these fighters are lean, the shape and definition of their muscles would show that they engage in more explosive movements and work on muscular performance more so than the jiu-jitsu athlete. For the wrestlers, almost all of the high-level wrestlers have bodies that are heavily muscled and stocky because that's what the sport requires. Relating body shape and muscle mass to the athletes and their sports does not imply that a jiu-jitsu athlete can't have the same build as a wrestler. Some of the best jiu-jitsu athletes have bodies that do resemble those of high-level wrestlers. The point is that the type of body that you have does not matter in the sport of jiu-jitsu because it is fully based on technicality of the sport. And in the sport of wrestling, in order to succeed, you need to have a certain body type at the highest level because of the components of the sport. The one aspect that all of the three sports share is weight cutting. Athletes compete at certain weight classes, meaning sometime before they compete, they need to weigh in and be under or at a certain weight. The professionals for all of these sports go through a grueling 4 to 8 week period where they take on a strict diet, and then on the last couple days before they weigh in, they cut the water from their body and sweat out as much water as they possibly can or need to in order to make their weight limit. The athletes sweat out the water either by exercising, taking hot baths, or using a sauna. It is a gruesome aspect of the game that is required of all three sports. Although the three sports have different forms of training and physical requirements, they are all phenomenal athletes in very competitive sports. And to ever achieve success professionally for all the athletes is deserving of respect. Thank you, and I hope you enjoyed the video.